helps us as to how we present this information to you today. We're getting started a little bit late. We're gonna try to make up for it, the time, but we'll do what we do. So the portion of this portal actually is just, the portion of this portion is to talk about submitting your strategic and school renewal plans with the portal. So there are two actual systems. Some of you are on what we call the strategic renewal portal, and then some of you are GEMS. Who's GEMS? All right, so we're gonna get started with strategic renewal first, and then we're gonna go into GEMS second, okay? If you have any questions while we're going along, please make sure that you ask whatever questions you have. And I pray I don't talk fast, because I do talk fast sometimes. So if I start talking a little bit too fast, just say, then I'll know to bring it out. So the very first thing that you're gonna do is once you log in, you're gonna click on strategic renewal. And that will bring you to this portion where you're gonna use the drop down menu and select your district. So we have two sets. We have the district side and then we have the school side. So depending on where you are or where you're located, that depends on what you see. So either way, if you're a district or a school, I need you to click on that first one that says administer district strategic plan or administer school renewal plan. So that brings us to this page. We're gonna have a conversation for a minute in reference to this because there are three different things that's really going on. So if you just did your initial plan, if you've already done your initial 5-year plan, the very next plan that you're gonna do is the update plan. Okay, the very next plan that you're gonna do is the update plan. And I'm saying this specifically because for the past 3 to 5 weeks, we had 2 different districts that were mixed up in the type of plans that they were submitting. So if you've already done your initial plan, the very first thing that you're gonna do is the update plan. After you do that update plan, if you have to make any corrections or any edits, then what you're gonna do is choose the revision plan. So the revision comes in the middle of an update. You will keep doing revisions and keep doing revisions for that particular year. And then once that year ends, we'll go back to the update plan for the next year. Now, if you're at the end of your cycle and it's time for you to do your initial plan, then you have to permanently close the old plan out before you can start a new plan. Some sites I've seen don't have full access to this. And there were many times for some of my districts, I had to go in and close them out. So some of them have them, some of them do not. It just depends on the type of access that your district has allowed you to have. Okay? You will do your initial plan, you will do annual updates from the 2nd year to the 5th year. You'll do updates every year. And then again, as I said, at the end of your cycle, you will permanently close out your plan in order to start a new initial plan. So when it's time to close out that plan, you're gonna see this. This ends your cycle and you're gonna have that button there that says new 5-year plan that you will click in order to start over and to start that initial. It's gonna specifically say new 5-year plan, and then you choose that. For update plan, as I said, you just basically select new update plan and keep going. And lastly, for that revision plan, you choose revision. Any questions so far? Yes.
Sorry. So when we're annually updating that 5-year plan, that's the update. But then after we've made that update, if we need to go back and make any revisions to our update, that's where we go.
That's new revision.
Okay.
Yes. No problem. So this is what you see when it's time to do your editing. So this is the district view. It's kind of pretty much the same thing for the school. So you start with wherever you want to edit. Now, the signature page, of course, you get your signatures and you're going to scan that page back in. Assurances, we do have some districts that do those as well, but then there's a way in the portal that you can go down and just click for your assurances and not necessarily have to scan something in. But you're going to choose each one to complete, and we're going to go through them. As I said, for the school, yours look pretty much the same way. You have your list of options there that you choose to complete. In order to get to the school, you choose your district. Then once you choose your district, you choose your school. And once you get your school name, this is what you'll see there. So, signature page. You print it out, you get your signatures, and then you scan the signature page. You print it out, you get your signatures, and then you scan your signatures back in. And you must have all of the required people on that signature page. If we don't have a signature page, your plan will not be approved. There's no way around it. This is how you go by doing that. And it is very important that you get everybody that's supposed to sign. Click save, and then click main. Again, like I said, with assurances, some people do theirs on a separate sheet of paper and scan it back in. To me, it's easier just to go down and choose. Now, if you're at an elementary site, all of the assurances must be included. Middle and high, there are a few of them that don't apply to you. But if you're elementary, all of the assurances apply to you. If you're elementary, all of the assurances apply to you. Middle and high, there are some that don't. And it specifically says within these sections, the age that they're targeting, so forth and so on. So make sure that you are not just clicking because you're supposed to click, but kind of read through it and see what it is that that's actually there. And then by the same token, we do expect you to implement them at your particular site. So then we have the stakeholder involvement. All you're gonna do is go in each cell and type the person's name. Go in each cell and type the person's name, whoever it is, according to their title. Click save and return to main menu. Everything that you do, make sure you click save. Even if you're in the middle of it, just click save just to make sure that it's saved. Okay? Waivers. Technically, waivers are not to be submitted until your plan is approved. You cannot submit your waivers until your plan is approved. So when we get plans that have waivers in these boxes, we ask them to take them out. And then once your plan is approved, then you can use what we call Formstack still, or has that changed?
No, it's still the same.
Okay, we'll use that link for Formstack to go in and submit your waivers. But as for this particular plan and this particular portion of it, your waiver should not be in there. So then we have another type of submission that you can do called a one upload replacement file. And that upload will actually probably contain all of this information as opposed to entering it separately. The one upload replacement file is when you combine all of them together and just submit it to the portal. Now, honestly, sometimes the way it looks when it comes, the pages are kind of lopsided sometimes because as we know, when we're scanning pages, we have 30 pages and scanning all of them in some type of scanner, things get kind of crooked sometimes. So be careful for that. But we can't tell you that you can't do it that way. It's up to you how you do it. Or you,
Where's that?
where is this? It's under the one upload replacement file. So in order to do that, from the menu, you're gonna choose File. Then you're going to locate it on your computer. And you're gonna attach it and it will show up here. And you need to make sure that you choose one load replacement. One load replacement, excuse me. You can also separately put in your title page, your mission and vision. Here's where you would do your signature pages and all of those. All you're doing is just adding them to that portion of the portal. We've had some people to include the signature page in with the one upload replacement file. You choose to do that, that's fine. You can just add it separately. To me, it's better separate, but it's up to you how you choose to do it. Once you are completed, you're gonna submit plan for district review. And then it's gonna go to your district. Some sites, they send their actual plan to their district contact person, and the district contact person does all of that. That's fine as well. But if you have the access to get into the portal and input, you're gonna make sure that you submit plan for district review. And then once they get it, they can approve it for the superintendent. And sometimes, according to the access, this part is eliminated. And once they click submit, it comes to the agency. So again, it just depends on how it's set up in the district. Either way, that has to take place before it comes to us. Any questions about strategic renewal? Feel better, feel worse? I don't know how you feel.
I have a quick question, if that's okay.
Yes.
So you talked about the one load, the one page. What if we wanted to do, or we had a scenario where we needed to click our assurances? We leave something out of that and do it in the, I'm not making sense. So I've taken over a strategic plan for someone, right? And they left the assurances out, right? They went in and manually did it. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It looks better that way.
Good, okay,
It
perfect.
does.
Awesome, thank you.
That's fine. Any other questions? Strategic renewal. Okay, so my GEMS people, your portion of it is very simple because everything is just save and continue, save and next, however you choose to do it. So we're gonna sign in. This is what the GEMS page look like.
Is everyone eventually going to this, or we stay separate?
That you want to
To be
answer that?
determined, we don't know for sure. There's been so many discussions about getting a site that's more robust. So no, right now the plan is to stay where you're at. Good question, though. We're not sure either, as you can tell.
So this is the homepage when you log in to your particular site. This is just what it looks like, and it's kind of small. So I wanted to try to make sure I got the whole thing on there. So I hope you're able to see it. So the very first thing that you're going to do is go to your school renewal plan information. And you're just gonna click what applies to you and then fill in the contact information, making sure that you choose your improvement status.
Better, is 2026 up and ready for us to go ahead and start?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, because last year it wasn't, I had to wait for it to get
Yeah,
updated. Okay,
it's up.
thank you.
Mhm. So once you do that, you click on this go to at the top and choose go to the next page. Then you have your stakeholders. And at the bottom of it, you'll see where you can enter your mission, vision, beliefs, and that's optional. You don't have to do that. But it's there. Click in each of the cells or each stakeholder's name. Entering the needs assessment data. Your needs assessment is more than just a link to your report card. You need to actually list your actual needs assessment data, and we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. But it's more than just the school report card link. Okay. You can, it says for you to include the link, but you also need to actually put in your needs assessment in this section. The executive summary, you have one for student achievement, teacher administrative quality, and school climate. It's a must. Because you start with your needs assessment that links you to your executive summary. What did you find? What is the evidence? What are you getting ready to target? What are you gonna work on? Because that bridges the gap to your performance goals. And you must have all three of those categories done. So this is one that I pulled for the sake of showing you how it's organized. That is the biggest hang up with GEMS, the organization. How do I organize this so that I'm still including all of my information? Because remember, you're supposed to have a performance goal. You're supposed to have an interim goal. You're supposed to have projected data each year, including your actual data. Then you still have your strategies and your action steps. So you're supposed to have all of that listed in here. This is the part that a lot of sites struggle with because they don't know how or where to include that projected data. So up top here, by 2029, ABC School will have 72% of sixth graders giving them that data, the actual performance goal. Then they drop down to the PM and give the projection for 25, projection for 26, projection for 27, projection for 28, and projection for 29. So each of the projections are labeled under the PM. Each of the projections are labeled under the title PM. Questions about just the way this is set up? Some sites have taken all of this data and they just have a big blur up at the top, and it's really hard to read, especially when you're reading 400 sites. That's hard to see. But then when it's time for you to go back and put in your actual data, it's harder for you to do that because you got to decipher through that entire block. If you separate it, it's easier to do. So then what happens after that? Once I open up my PM, so this one says by 2025, gave the projection data, and then it's time for the actual data that will go in that slide. Come down, up under PM, you have your S, which are your strategies. And then if you click one more time, I think I got it next. The S is for action steps.
Better if I could interject. So with your actual data, how many of you are working a year in arrears? So that you have your data. In other words, you use the report card data, put it in, so you're kind of a year in arrears. If that works, it's not ideal in the sense that it's full data, but because they're due by April 30th, that's a conundrum, right? One of the things that we ask you to do, though, is differentiate between data you don't have yet and data you do, because in some cases, we'll see winter benchmarking goals, and you don't have any data. You have your winter benchmark data, right? If it's report card data, just something in there that says to be determined, we'll look at it in July, whatever. We ask you not to leave it blank. All right, so again, differentiate between if you're in arrears, you should have all your data. If you're not in arrears, then you should have the data that you can't have. If it's PowerSchool data, if one of your goals was something related to attendance, and it's put it in there. Even if it's April 15th or whatever date it is, and it's not the end of the year, you still have a long snapshot, right? On discipline or whatever it might have been in PowerSchool. But if you are definitely, if you're doing some kind of a winter benchmark, maybe even a spring benchmark, and you've got it, please put that in, because we're going to start returning them with no data. The whole idea is that we want to see your progress. Make sense?
And you can always, when you put the data in, you can, if you pull the data April 1st, you can say that this is the number as of April 1st, 2000, whatever.
So in our district, I work with our elementary schools. So many of our schools wrote their school renewal plans based on report card data, but they do have spring iReady data that gives projected proficiency. So what I hear is that even if our main goal is written on SE Ready, that we can put in that projected proficiency that we got on that spring iReady data to give you a data point.
You can.
Okay.
What I was saying though specifically is if it is a goal specific to on your spring benchmark, you will have this level of X, then we definitely want to see that.
Yes.
If you want to do what you're doing on an SE Ready goal, that's great. Because
Okay.
at least that gives us some indication and it gives you an indication. When you get your SE Ready data, was it
Yes.
aligned? Is that a good data point to help us understand or know, are our kids ready or close to ready? Yes, we want you to be looking at data.
Yeah.
Here's part of the situation is, you're not doing this well if you only look at SC, or if you only look at report card data. I mean, that's just too late in the process. It's
Okay.
better than nothing, but that should only be, and you should be looking at your report card data.
Yes.
Don't hear that, but there should be data along the way that you're looking at and put into the process so that you're interpreting it and understanding
Excellent.
And honestly, there are sites that just use their iReady data. And that's because they have more access to it. They have more monitoring that they're doing with it. Just getting revisions according to what the iReady data give them. So even if you chose to use iReady as opposed to SC Ready, by the time they take SC Ready, the year's over with.
Mhm.
So there's nothing else you can do if that's all you're looking at. So if you choose to do iReady versus SC Ready, that's perfectly fine.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we ever, and we've talked about it for years, are we ever going to come up with a system where we can have all plans under one umbrella?
it.
Because I've
Still
got
working on it.
continuous improvement
Got it.
plans, I've got turnaround plans, you've got your school renewal plans, you've got ATSI plans, you have CSI plans, you have Title I, I mean, everything. And we're really just regurgitating some of the same information over and over again.
Correct.
Are we ever going to work smarter and not harder?
We're trying.
Yeah, I've been here for 4.5 years and we've been doing it since I've been here too, so
Oh, yeah, I've been in South Carolina 20 years, and so
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, everybody promises that we're gonna do something.
It's a work in progress.
Okay.
We were close at one point, we were really close,
It's all we had it.
and it didn't work out, but we're trying.
Okay.
So even in gyms, you still have your assurances that you can click on. And you're just gonna go down and use the drop-down menu to choose whatever assurance applies to your site. Again, I say elementary and district, I didn't say district, elementary and district should have everything. But middle school and high school, there are certain assurances that do not apply to you. But elementary and district, and district, and district should have everything. Again, with the waivers, in this stage of the DSSR, you don't include your waivers. You're gonna do your waivers after your plan has been approved. After your plan has been approved. And then once it's approved, you use that form stack in order to submit your waiver. So you don't even have to put them with your strategic plan or your school renewal plan. We have the GT portion of your plan for the district. And this is what you should include: 2 SMART goals, policies and practices, your scope and sequence, your grades for academic service and artistic service, and then your screening and identification. What questions do you have? So this is a link to a page that our office has created for resources for this process that you're going through. Regardless to the portal you're using, regardless to your stage, where you're at on your DSSR, whether it's initial or update or even revisions, there are resources that are there for your viewing. Even if it's down to the template. I've had some in the past that didn't like the template their district was using and wanted another template. Templates are on there as well. Exemplars are on there as well. So you can utilize that as you wish. Any questions?
Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And we'll, you might have already covered this. We'll have access to this PowerPoint afterwards, or is
Yes.
that okay? So,
It might be a while before we make it accessible, but we should have a recording and a link to the PowerPoint.
I just want to make sure I get that.
All right. Thank you, Nevada. Good morning. Switching gears now a little bit. My name is Pat Sicantelli, and I'm an ed associate here at the South Carolina Department of Education. This is my 45th year in education. I was a teacher and a coach, an athletic administrator, assistant principal, curriculum director, assistant superintendent, retired as a superintendent. Worked in Ohio most of my career. Came here about 4.5 years ago. So I work on the innovation and support team. One of the things I'm going to share, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the structure and a little bit about culture in the process of school improvement. Okay. So the better kind of went over the nuts and bolts of the application. We're going to get into the heart of the matter, if you will. Now, this is going to be a little bit more of a fundamental discussion. This afternoon, we're going to get a little deeper. So I don't know if we did try to separate the idea that this is folks who have not had as much experience. And if you have, we'll see. We've got a little extra time. Maybe we'll get a little bit into that. But there's a school improvement model that SCDE has adopted. Strategic planning is school improvement, right? I mean, it's part of that overall process. And I like to use the medical analogy that the first step in this process is to diagnose. If you go to a physician and you're not diagnosed well, what are the chances that the selection of the interventions, the plan, the implementation is going to go well? It's not good. If you've been diagnosed improperly, none of this will go well. So what's the most important step in school improvement? It's the same. It's diagnosing what their challenges are. Now that's deep because it's different by building, different by classroom, different by student, right? The diagnosis of that this elementary school has a reading problem may not apply in teacher X's room because she or he is really, really good. And we know that, right? We know that there are differences in classrooms, differences amongst kids. So you have to take it at a granular level. But the idea though is you do have to diagnose. And so if you're working in a district or even a building level, you need to make sure you understand, we have concerns in reading, probably. I don't think there's anybody here who can say, we're there, we're on the mountaintop of reading, right? We're good and happy. And so what are the problems and the challenges? That diagnosis is really, really important. The other step we just kind of briefly covered, and we'll talk a little bit more about it now. So a strategic plan is a dynamic process. We talked about data briefly here. I guess I will share with you, just like with your physician or your diagnosis, if you don't go back and revisit how you're doing and understand and revise, right, or make changes to what's going on, it's got to be dynamic. So if you're getting this out and dusting it off for compliance, and after the report card data comes out, you say, oh, how did we do? Let's put our data in the boxes. Not doing school improvement. You're being compliant with a process of strategic planning that SCDE says you have to, well, the state, right? Legislation said it first. We have regulations that go along with that. And then there are all the things that the actions that are needed to bring that together. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some of those strategies, some of those things that make strategic planning happen and work. There are lots and lots of improvement opportunities, right? But not so much growth sometimes. And there's some reasons for that. So a needs assessment, we just talked about that. The needs assessment is that diagnosis. Your needs assessment and your executive summary in this plan should be a lot of work. If it's not, you're not doing it deep enough. Okay? And when we read executive summaries, in some cases, they're regurgitations of the goals. They're blah, blah, blah. I really, would like to emphasize to you that that's an important part of this process. Not for us. I do want to read good executive summaries. I don't want to read bad ones. But it's about your plan, right? I'm reading your plan. And it's about your kids and it's about your improvement. And so you need to articulate that in a way with all stakeholders and everybody understands what your challenges are, what's the summary of it. And so what is our diagnosis? What are we going to do to get better? That will help you understand the differentiated interventions. And we'll talk a little bit about that link that Devetta just shared with you. There's lots of resources there for that. What Works Clearinghouse, ESSA, What Works in ESSA. I mean, there's places you can go if you're not sure what we should do about our reading challenges. Probably you have people in your district who know those things, but if not, there are places you can go. The other thing I guess I want to share too, we're the innovation and support team. If at any point within the school improvement process, you want support, we will come out. That's what I do. I go to districts all year long. I've been in many districts across the state already. Like I shared, I have an experience from curriculum to being a superintendent. I've done strategic planning for a lot of years. So I'd be happy to come to your district or any of us and provide that support if you thought you needed it. And then the focused improvement. One of the things that's interesting, I'll read plans that will have a lot of goals. In fact, they may even have 6, 7, 8 goals in student achievement. And that's because maybe you want to have 2 or 3 reading goals and you've got some math goals and you've got a behavior or attendance goal or a discipline goal, etc. But then I read and there's lots of strategies and action steps. So I've counted them sometimes. If you add all the goals and all the action steps, it's well over 100. So who's monitoring that? Who's going to say that's working, that's not working? So a lot of times less is more with this process. Really try to find those things that are going to be strategic and focus on them. So don't get bogged down in it that more goals is better. I'd rather have you have less goals that are really good, deep dives into what you can do to strategically help your kids. So I'm going to break down the school improvement process into 2 areas. Right? The first one is the structure or the strategy. It's what you're doing. And the second one, and I'll get into it in a minute, is that culture. The structure strategy are those things that you're doing that'll help you to give a direction and a focus to it. So what that means is it's having a group of stakeholders, right? Get together and talk about what's happening in our building or in our district. And truly taking a deep dive and understanding your challenges by looking at data. And once you've done that, then doing a root cause analysis. And doing those things to get to a deep diagnosis. And then taking the time by either consulting experts or using those resources to find the interventions. What are the best practices? How many people have had or seen a challenge in math scores? You get together, you get a new curriculum, you do an hour of training, you implement it, and there you go. And then 4 years later, guess what you do? The same thing again. And please don't do that, right? If it's researched and the practices are strong, then you need to get really good at that curriculum. Spend your time helping your teachers become experts at math instruction. So an organization has to be able to efficiently execute that strategy. So it's not that you have to change strategies or you don't have the right one. Pick the right ones the first time and then get really good at it. So that structure are all those things you're going to do. And again, we're not going to get as deep today that we will in the afternoon, but know that there's a lot to that. To me, this is the most important slide in the presentation, in that if you don't have the culture to have school improvement, it will not happen. You have all the structure you want. But that was, I think, something that I saw, learned, and became pretty good at, because it's something that has to happen. My background, I was a coach in my early part of my career. In fact, I even coached at the collegiate and professional level before I went back into education for professional coaching. And the level of scrutiny, right, at that level, the accountability is unbelievable. And you are really, really good at what you do, at analyzing it, diagnosing it, working to improve. Because if you don't improve it, what happens? You don't work anymore, right? So it's not like if you had bad reading scores in third grade for 2 years, well, I'm sorry, but you have to go. You got to go. So anyway, that culture. So there are a couple things. Number one, it's got to be collaborative. I love that saying. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. There are folks in your building, probably for sure in your district, that are reading experts. They should be your friends. You should know them, you should understand, and make sure that they are helping you to utilize the best practices. I'll give you one example. In my career, we put in academic coaching about 15 years ago, and we found two really, really good reading teams, coaches. And I'm going to tell you, we went into rooms and we went in for 2 or 3 weeks and we left and we found out that nothing changed, or rarely changed. So we went in for 4 or 5 weeks and we did a deep dive and we planned together. They wrote assessments together. They went across the whole grade level. We saw some change. We went in there for 8 and 9 weeks. Guess what we saw? Teachers who were different on the other side. That's anecdotal, and that's my own research. That's us. We found out it took, for most teachers, about an 8 or 9 week deep dive with a coach. We started out with 2, because that's what the research said. The research said, go in, spend a couple weeks, co-plan, co-teach, co-assess. Some of you have done this process, right? I don't know what your experience is, but I can tell you the longer they're in there, the better. There are some teachers that if you're in there for 2 or 3 weeks, they're so good that they can glean and they can move on, and they're probably a little different on the other side. But the majority of them on the other side looked exactly like they did before we got there. We kept doing it. It took us about 5 years to get it right. But wow. Now, there were still a couple of teachers that didn't look that different on the other side, but not many at all. They looked different. And guess what? If you've got great teachers doing great things, you can't get in their way. This plan doesn't matter. And the opposite, if you've got teachers who aren't getting it done, the plan, you can make all the plans and all the things you want. The teachers aren't getting it done, kids won't learn, not at the level they should. But you got to be collaborative and distributive. You got to have relationships, because change is hard, right? It is hard. And then I think there's an accountability that has to be established by the leadership, but a level of trust that we're doing this because we care about kids, not because we're trying to put the thumb on adults, or because we don't like teachers, or because right? We're doing this for kids. And so again, if you get this done well, you got a chance for change to happen. I love that. Don't expect changes in your outcomes where you have changes in adult practices. if your teachers aren't doing it different, right? There are teachers in your building that you wouldn't want your own kids to have. I know. Right? We gotta fix them. We gotta help them. We gotta help them get better. So here's a book. If you're not familiar, I would highly recommend. It's about reading. It's called Annual Growth and Kept Up Growth. And it's a district in Washington. And they, through a strategic plan process, essentially made a determination they are not going to have poor reading scores anymore. If you follow along what they did pedagogically, it's solid. It's solid. Here's what I loved about this book. It's from the absolute top, the superintendent down. They were not going to accept anything less than meeting their goals. Their culture was high expectations, accountability, but trust. They worked hard. They built a culture of this is what this is who we're going to be. We're going to be a district and buildings where kids can read. And their reading scores went way up. Wasn't a trajectory on a straight line. Too, don't think that. You're going to go this and up and down. There'll be cohorts of the year, right? But overall, your trajectory hopefully should be going in that direction. It was not a linear line by any stretch of the imagination, but over time, their kids now are reading, the vast majority of them on grade level. And that was not the case. And they had some pretty high poverty. This was not a district that was underperforming. This was a district that was probably performing at what would be expected of their poverty level, but said no more. And so really, I enjoyed that book. So action plans, the idea that improvement models emphasize that you have to do multiple things that we talked about in our school improvement model, right? Can't overemphasize enough that diagnosis idea. The idea that if you don't get your diagnosis right and get it at a fairly deep level, and that doesn't just mean building, that means teachers. Professional development is not one size fits all. We learn that in our coaching model. You'll learn that. You get a new math curriculum, and you set aside 3 or 4 hours of training at the beginning of the year, right? A couple teachers are flying, some are not sure making it, and some have no idea, right? You got to differentiate that. And so your strategic plan, there's part of the revision. I've got a group of teachers who are going to need a lot more training. I need to pull them out, give them coaching, send them to the other rooms to watch, whatever, right? Lots of opportunities. So, but all those things that we talk about that are strategies that are important, I'm going to, one last emphasis. Transformations don't take place though, till the school permits it. And so again, here's, if I could give you one piece of advice on that, it's be about kids. Make sure everyone in that building knows that you're there for kids. Because when you won't accept anything less than high standards because you're about kids, people will be okay with that. When it's about, because I want to become the superintendent, people aren't going to be okay, right? I want my next step, or I want my, no, it's about, I want this for our kids. I want this so that we can say our kids are readers. So there are statutory and regulatory requirements. It sounded like when DeVetter did a quick peruse of the room that most of you are at least somewhat veteran. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time. You guys probably know these. That's the process, right? You've got to have these plans every year. There has to be an update. New plan every 5 years, due April 30th. And then it's to coordinate and align your improvement initiatives. April 30th, we want them in by then, but I will tell you this. If you talk to us and call us and say, look, we're working hard, but we've got some things we want to do, or we've got some data we want to add, call us to make sure. We don't want you to be late without having had a conversation, but we're about good plans, not about deadline. April 30th is the date that was set so long ago. There was no state testing when that date was set. So it's kind of a difficult date today. So if you're doing good work and you ask us that, we'll be happy. If you do it because you say, oh yeah, we just looked at this last week, we're not ready, that's not true. So you guys know what I'm saying. All right. So there are components within our plan. DeVetter touched on them. Again, same way. Wasn't sure what the room would look like. There are the assurances that you have to meet. There's the stakeholder involvement. That's important. When you're doing your initial, I truly don't underestimate the power of having lots of different sets of eyes there, folks with different experiences and Because that wider that lens is, then the better chance you have of being really good at being diagnostic and then getting to the root of that problem. That comprehensive needs assessment, you know, and I say comprehensive, as it's shared, there are needs assessments you have to do for federal title programs and other things. If you, even though we don't have a tool for it, do those together if you can, coordinate that. Don't have special ed working over here and your title folks working over here, and you're right. All those people should be at the table together. We'd love to have that tool for you. We don't yet, and hopefully someday we will. But that doesn't stop you from doing what's best practices by being, you know, comprehensive in that process. Then that executive summary. The reason that's important again is I want you and your stakeholders to be able to synthesize what is it that we determine. What's wrong with the patient, if you will, right? That medical analogy again. What's the summary of our challenges? If you get the diagnosis right, you got a really good chance. If you don't get it right, you got a very limited chance of being successful, right? You're throwing darts at the wall with a blindfold on because you don't know what your challenges are. Your reading scores are low. They've been low for 15 years. We're still not sure why. Let's try plan F, plan G, plan H, right? Be very focused. Those performance goals then, those are important. Of course, that's the stuff that you want to get to. In that book that I just shared, they set their goals, they set them high, and they established that they weren't going to be satisfied until they didn't meet them the first year, they didn't meet them the second year, but again, their trajectory was the right way. Those strategies and action plans, hugely important. There are sources for those, or get the experts in your district, your buildings, to help you with those. Make sure they're best practices and don't abandon them. Be committed to them. Because if there's research that says it works, it'll work with your kids. But your teachers have to be, right, aligned. Your teachers have to have good assessments. There are lots of questions, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And then the evaluations of those strategies. That's why I don't want you to have too many. You really should be looking at each of those strategies at some depth to say, what's working, what's not working, what is it that we can give up on or have to tweak, and we want to continue to keep going. So performance goals, you guys are familiar then, you have to have for the district and for the buildings, right? Again, this is more about the compliance part of it. Got to have them in each of those areas, at least one in each area. You can certainly have more. One of the things I'll share about goals too, I'm surprised how rarely I see a subgroup goal. And I'll look at data and I'll see a subgroup for a district whose achievement is so poor, it's disappointing. And there's no subgroup goal. How could you not focus on it? That's the low-hanging fruit, right? If there's a subgroup performing really, really poorly, why? And I've got room for improvement. A subgroup that's at 15 or 20% efficiency, if you will, of meeting the standard, I got lots of room for growth there. I might get a quick bump up. So subgroup goals, I rarely see them. And so it's something that I would encourage. So in our process of this school improvement model, we've talked about diagnose, getting just a little deeper, planning and preparing for the process, making sure you've got everything set, making sure you've got stakeholder groups, right? All the things that you would need, collecting and analyzing data. Make sure you have data and make sure people understand. Bring to your team somebody that can help you with data. We talked about a winter benchmark, right? How many of you have done a correlation on your winter benchmark and your SC ready scores? Okay, very, very good. So you got an indication or idea, is the rigor there? Did you find that the rigor on your benchmark was high enough, or did your benchmark scores not really reflect SC ready scores?
It depended on the grade level and the.
Okay. My experience is often it does not. The rigor of the SC ready test is more than those benchmarks. And so you'll see 60% of the kids, as an example, in reading in fourth grade on the benchmark, okay, feeling good about 60. We were 50 on the SC ready last year, or 40, whatever. SC ready comes out and you're 48 again. You're 45, you know. So one of the things I'll share with you that we did is we did those same correlations for our summative assessments by grade level. They were common and they were developed over several years. And guess what we found out when we were in a correlation? It blew away the benchmark. It was really close. So now we had assessments. And when I gave it as a teacher, and I had to talk with the child's parents or, whatever, after enough of them, your child's on target. He's good, he or she. Third grade reading guarantee, right? We felt good. We knew who was gonna, not 1-to-1, but way higher than any vendor-produced benchmark, way higher. Took us years to do. But that's an example of having that information, working at it, collaborating, revising, right? That process, we got so good that the rigor of our common summative assessments was aligned to the state standard. Really close. And so we got good at it. Using that needs assessment rubric to identify needs, we'll share that. Prioritizing those strategic things. Again, don't get too bogged down in your goals. Make sure you got some goals that you are really focusing on. Keep saying reading because again, I can't even imagine if you're not focusing on their reading goal. Probably math too, especially since COVID. How many folks our math scores are as high as they were before COVID? Anybody? Elementary they are? Okay. Phenomenon, right? Something happened, something changed. Well, math builds upon itself. And in some cases, kids lost a year to 2 years of instruction. They've got gaps. Reading is more cyclical. It's a lot of the same processes with more complex text, right? So reading makes sense. It would come back faster. Math, there's gaps that we haven't closed. A lot of work to do, just as an example. So being strategic. So that needs assessment, an inclusive team approach. I love collaboration, having more people at the table. We would do deep dives in the data. And one of the things we found out, sharing, we looked at students who had been identified as special ed in third grade one year. And we found a trend. And every single one of them that had gotten teacher X, Y, and Z, we had 10 teachers per grade. It was about 3,200 kids. They were special ed. And we went back 3 years then. Guess what? If you got the educational lottery equivalent of a bad deal, you were special ed. Because there's only so many kids who got that same 10 teachers, got what we knew was probably the worst teacher in the grade. How about that? We guaranteed that. We just about, right? That's horrible. Absolutely horrible. So one of the things, of course, is we made sure the principal knew. You cannot do that to a child. We obviously then had to go and work even harder with those teachers. That's a real story. And that's true. That's what the data does. When I was a high school principal, we looked at special ed. I told you about subgroups. We went 4 years in a row. This is a very high achieving district. We had 19 kids over the course of 4 years who were taught in the resource room, but took the regular state assessment, right? 0 pass. So I'm the high school principal at the end of my first year. I see that data. I go back 4 years. I see it's 0 over 4 years. I'm like, okay, so that's broken. So went back to my notes, talked to some people, realized that we were teaching 6th and 7th grade math to the 9th and 10th grade students because that was their level. And I said, not anymore. They'll be exposed to the curriculum and we'll fill the gaps. And we're going to put 2 periods in there, whatever. Although over the course of the next 2 years, how many kids passed? 81% of the kids passed. Went from 0 to 81%. We were teaching the curriculum. We were teaching a curriculum that wasn't even being assessed anymore. They were in 9th and 10th grade. But we were doing it because we were being nice to the children, right? We didn't want them to feel bad, but we weren't. It was the fault of the adults that these children weren't passing. And so those are the kinds of things when you do a needs assessment and you look deep at data, you'll find them. You'll go, that's broken. I didn't know why it was broken. I really didn't at the end of my first year. Then I went back and kind of talked and well, and I'm like, hey, we're teaching 6th and 7th. That wasn't hard, right? If you're teaching 6th and 7th grade standards and being assessed on 9th and 10th, probably won't pass. In math, especially. And I didn't. So what can you do to understand what your challenges are. We're gonna give you 2 recommendations today, right? So when you get your data, what do you do to look at it? How many of you have ever done a SWOT analysis? All right, so that's one way to do it. And if you're familiar, you just categorize things based upon a process of what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are your opportunities, and what are your threats. You'll do that with your stakeholders. The more voices, the more lenses that you have in this process, the better and deeper it is. And it'll help you to understand where you're at so that you can now start the process of saying, okay, weaknesses. You know, nobody in high school who is taught math in the resource room passes. Okay, let's look at that. Every single student who gets teacher X, Y, and Z in kindergarten, first and second grade by third grade has been identified as special ed. What? Yeah, everyone, every single one. That's a problem. And you can use this process to kind of help you get there, right? And then you'll go into your process of understanding it deeper, and that's that diagnosis. The other way to do it are reflective questions. And so we can give you sets of reflective questions. There are sets out there. And I like kind of a combination of both. Because in some cases, stakeholders don't always know, and even sometimes teachers don't always know what we're looking at. So an example, our district engages, or our building engages and supports our schools or all classrooms in systematic processes or curriculum design for aligned instruction assessment within a required standard. Okay, so in my building as a high school principal, in a resource room, the answer to that question was no. Now, in third grade, I had certain teachers who referred 4 or 5 kids for interventions every year, and other teachers that almost regularly did. And their kids all made it, knees were dying because the teacher, there's so much data, and there's so much even anecdotal opportunities for you out there if you're paying attention to who's doing what. So do you have the instructions? So that's that question about your benchmarks. Your benchmarks are gonna tell you that. So when you get to your winter benchmark, if your kids are at a really good level and you feel like your benchmarks are aligned to SC ready, then the answer to the first question is, we're probably okay. We're on our way, right? We're doing better or we're on our way. If you have common summatives or benchmarks that aren't telling you that, can you answer that first question in the affirmative? If not, okay, that's something we're gonna go back to. We don't have an aligned curriculum in all of third grade that puts our kids on target to read at grade level. The curriculum is not rigorous enough, the assessments aren't aligned enough. What's missing? You see how reflective questions can help you guide, supports, evaluates, implementation, so the implementation. So we've got a new curriculum, it's aligned, it's good, but we use guided reading as an example. And when you went into classrooms, it looked like guided reading, right? In format, but it wasn't. It wasn't happening in the level that it should. And you know what told us that? Our diagnostic assessments. And so as we got good data throughout the year, we could see teachers differentiating themselves in the student's ability to be on grade level. And so you're going to go through as many questions as you need to. That's just 5 or 6. And there are resources that I can share with you or that you can get yourself. Michigan Department of Education and Arizona's Department of Education are 2 of them that have very robust. That's a tool that we were building along with the Common One Plan idea that we haven't gotten done yet, but there are some resources out there. And so, again, I like those because even for some building principals, for sure many teachers and lots of the other stakeholders, it helps them to get to the essence of some of the questions you should be asking. So what are the things we should be looking at? Aligned curriculum. Do we have effective instruction? Do we have the leadership? From a district level, if any of you are in larger districts, are there some buildings that perform better than others, just like teachers? Absolutely. Some principals can make it happen. Some principals cannot. They're not instructional leaders. You gotta either fix it, you gotta do something, right? And that's just a factor that you should look at. Supports for teachers and students. If my child is not on grade level, do I have the intervention supports I need? Do I have the quality academic coaches? Do I have good tier 1 interventions that are being done in the classroom? Do I have good tier 2 interventions that are done either in the classroom or in a pull-out setting? Do I have those opportunities for kids to close gaps? If I don't, how can I do that? That's where the needs assessment, including title folks, special ed folks, right? There's resources out there. How can we utilize those in a way that we can help as many kids as possible? Safe, supportive, positive climate. You can see the rest of it, right? So those are just some of the main factors you should be looking at. That's what's going to drive school improvement. So writing a goal, it's pretty simple. I think the biggest thing is, and we're going to get to it, I could go ahead and hit it now, is that it should be a SMART goal, right? How many of you are familiar with the term SMART goal, right? Hopefully you're right. So it has to be, S is strategic or specific. Strategic, that's huge. Making sure that it's something that's going to actually cause increases in student outcomes. It's got to be measurable. One of the challenges is like professional development. So we're putting in a new math series or a new math program. And many times you guys will write a goal that says, I want 100% of all the math teachers to go to the training. Does that guarantee any level of success at all? That's strategic. No, everyone's there means diddly doo-doo. I mean, it's a start. That's the most basic start there is, right? So how could we write a goal that would be strategic for professional learning? There's a few ways you can do it. There could be a rubric. It could be through walkthrough observations. It could be through the observation process that we're going to look specifically at, are they implementing strategies in this new curriculum, right? There are ways to do it. They're deeper, they're more challenging, and they take more time. This plan is not my plan, it's your plan. So I'll probably approve a goal that said 100% have to attend it. I'm going to snicker to myself and say they're not trying, they're writing a goal that they can measure easily and move on. They're not really trying to get better. And that's my challenge to you. This process is mandatory. And if you're doing it because it's mandatory, then whatever, you're probably not that person because you wouldn't be here. But again, these are not our plans. So we read them, we're going to look at them, and we're going to keep you to a minimum standard. But if you pass us, that doesn't mean you got a great plan. We're not making you have all the best practices. So that's part of what I want to do today is challenge you for that. So this process in a graphic looks a little bit like this. So you're going to have a problem statement. So problem statements are the things you're going to derive from doing that data walk. We've got challenges in reading XYZ, right? So you develop a problem statement that's very specific. You're going to look at that and try to develop understand what is the root cause of that from that problem statement. How do we overcome? So guided reading in our building is not effective in many classrooms. Okay, why? Special learning, blah, blah, lack of understanding, lack of implementation practice. And then from that, you'll have strategies. So you're going to do some academic coaching. You're going to send them to a conference. You're going to have them go watch other teachers, whatever that is. Those strategies will then drive those performance objectives, which will then help them reach the goal. Your goal will be that you're going to increase reading outcomes for students as measured by X, Y, or Z, right? So that's that process of school improvement. And so the CNA is the needs assessment, and the CIP is just continuous improvement process. And you're going to keep doing that. We did that with academic coaching. And we went from 2 weeks in the classroom to 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 8 to 9. And we went from being in 1 or 2 classes at a time to whole grade level so that we could have that collaborative dialogue. And so our coach was in 3rd grade in one building for literally 8 or 9 weeks. But you know what happened? Some people would say, oh my gosh, that level of commitment. But you know what? When she left, guess what happened? The teachers were different. That's what we wanted. We wanted them to look pedagogically different. And when we did it for 2 or 3 weeks, they did not. So that's pretty simple, right? I mean, there's no reason to do it for 2 or 3 weeks. It doesn't work. So challenges with your process, lack of time. Make sure you give this enough time. Again, due by April 30th. If you're working hard, doing great things, I'm just gonna tell you, we're here to work. April 30th, we'd love you to be done, but if you're not, don't let that. Insufficient tools. In some cases, you don't have all the things you need. You don't have the SWOT analysis or those reflective questions or those opportunities to have the dialogue to dig deeper about what's going on and really diagnose. Asking the wrong questions. I can't tell you how many plans have looked at trying to reduce their class size. And in some cases, I've gone back and read their old plans. They've been trying to reduce class size for 15 years. That's been their focus. What's the research say on reducing class size and student outcomes? Not that correlate. Read John Hattie's stuff, right? And others. Not that correlate. Would you rather have your child in a classroom with 28 kids and a great teacher, or in a classroom with 18 kids and a bad? Your personal child. You don't even have to hesitate, do you? Give me the 28 kids with a good teacher all day. How about class size? And some people, that's been a focus for 15 years. They're gonna spend money and they're gonna figure out, we're gonna get class size down. Okay, asking the wrong questions. Jump into solutions. We have a math problem. I've seen districts who have had 3 math curriculums in 9 years. Right? We try after 3 years, this curriculum didn't work. Bring in the math curriculum. That's the wrong solution. Do you have a good math curriculum? Is it research-based? What does it say? Are there other schools that have done this and seen kids grow? What are we not doing? Not the math curriculum, it's the other parts of it. And then ineffective implementation and monitoring. If you put in a new math curriculum, I've seen that. I've seen districts get a new math curriculum will literally do 2 hours of training. Very little follow-up within, no support. Teachers don't understand it. They don't understand the nuances of it. And they're kind of drowning. And if you don't have implementation, obviously it's not going to go well. All right, some other challenges at executive summary. I've asked you to do that well, and I've told you why. So making sure you identify that need on the basis of the plan. So you're going to make the appropriate correlations. What are the challenges? And so what are we going to do about those challenges? And then analyzing data at a deep level. More diagnostic you are, the better. You don't want your doctor to say, you've had a cough for 2 weeks, you probably have lung cancer. Let's treat you for lung cancer. Right? Not very diagnostic. You want them to look deeper and understand and what's going on, that I have this respiratory problem, right? Could be any number of things. Same with your process. Deeper, the more diagnostic, the better. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some examples. Still have some time. One of the things about the first example that we don't like to see are large cohorts. So that first example is 3rd through 8th graders on ELA and math. Depending upon the size of the building or district, that could literally be thousands of kids. These are goals we see. There's no way that you're going to, how do you know where the problem is? So we ask you to differentiate by subject area, and unless your building is really small by grade level. You should be looking at 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade as an example, right? Because you may have a really good set of teachers in 3rd grade, not so good in 4th grade, and your data is okay, your trajectory is decent, but your problem is 4th grade, and you're not addressing it because you're not. Or again, your subgroups. You may be doing some things really, really well, but you're not addressing this subgroup or that subgroup. Special ed is an easy one, right? It's very challenging in getting the scores to go up, but it's a subgroup that needs some attention. Why are they not achieving? And again, be careful. Make sure they're being exposed to the curriculum. You guys know that. How many times kids in special education are not being exposed? That's not easy. I'm not here to say, oh gosh, that's so easy, just do it. But at the same time, if they're not being exposed to the curriculum, then you got no chance. Reducing class sizes, I mentioned that. We've seen people reducing class sizes for 15 years. 3 plans in a row for 5 straight years. and we have no data to support that it's worked. Professional development, 100%. I kind of went over that one too. You know, if you're going to do professional learning, that's a great goal. Tie it to some level of rubric, understanding, proficiency of the people who have done the learning, that they're getting better. Last one are the school report card surveys. That's an issue for me personally, because what it is it's just easy data. Now, if you've got a survey that's come back for 2 or 3 years in a row and it's glaring and there are problems in your building because the parents don't trust this or that, absolutely address that. You know, I can't tell you, the vast majority of survey goals that I've seen, the baseline is over 90%. And in some cases, it's in the mid to high 90s. So I've seen goals in 5 years, they're gonna go from 98% on a parent survey to 100%. That isn't gonna affect kids. First of all, I don't know how you got the 98%, God bless you. Sometimes those are given out in, you know, at a PTA meeting or whatever, or, you know, what. If it's not good data, don't use it. It's easy data to mine, I understand that, but again, this is your process. We won't accept it if it's a high baseline. If you do a survey and it's 88%, you wanna get to 94, probably accept it. That's a crappy goal, I'm just gonna tell you. But, you know, be careful with that. That's the one we see. I will tell you that this last year, Neda and I had to review half the states. We, unfortunately, there are 2 people down in our team, 3 people altogether. I would tell you that 75 to 90% of the buildings in South Carolina have a survey done, with a baseline at 90% or higher. I'm not talking about a couple. The vast majority. All right. Monitoring. Things that are important are that instructional quality. Again, you know, there are kids or teachers that struggle every year, right? You gotta help. You gotta figure out. I mean, I know that's hard. There'll always be a teacher who will be your lowest teacher, right? I mean, someone's gonna be the lowest, but you gotta do what you can do to help and support them, so that they can, because those kids that are in there, that's their teacher, especially obviously in elementary school. The second one, lots of change and not much improvement. Please don't change for the sake of change. When you do this plan, if you're very diagnostic and really good at picking interventions, you've got a plan now. That book that I shared with you, they didn't change much pedagogically and structurally. It was just, this is what we're doing. They tweaked it. They made some changes. They got rid of some principals who weren't on board. They helped fix some teacher, you know, but they made a plan. They stuck to it, and their numbers went up because they didn't just change for the sake of this isn't working fast enough. They made sure it was being done right. And teachers regularly analyzing achievement data and setting goals. Too often, you know, there are districts and buildings who don't have a goal that's outside of the report. I don't know what you're doing outside of your strategic plan, so maybe you're doing all kinds of great things, and that's good. But in some cases, I think that's their data goal. So in August or September or October, whenever, they go look at their data and say, oh yeah, last year, 3rd grade didn't do so well. What should we do? No. And some people would say that's an autopsy, right? Those 3rd graders are now in 4th grade. Their chance to improve is over. Their chance to revise is limited. So be careful with that. So just a quick review. Focus plan aligns those things that you have that are part of your district, your vision, your mission, your philosophy, making sure you're true to your core. It's continuous and dynamic. School improvement is hard work. It takes a structure, it takes strategies, but more importantly, it takes a culture. It's the culture. Process relies on quality, deep data interpretations. If your diagnostic opportunities aren't good, again, don't go to a doctor who takes your blood pressure and says, I'm gonna give you all these different medicines because I think maybe you've got this ailment, right? He wasn't diagnosed. He did one little assessment. Who knows what that meant? Process is completed collaboratively and inclusively. Be inclusive with your stakeholder groups on your initial. Make sure that you've got a big lens and a lot of voices. In a perfect world, it's one focused integrated plan. Again, you don't have that tool, doesn't mean you can't do it that way. Right? And we're here to help you. Don't let special ed be an outlier. Don't let title monies be directed based upon what some principal thinks in each different building, right? Come up with an idea and then say, okay, we got title monies that we can use to help kids who aren't reading on grade level. Help kids with poverty, of course, level the playing field, but there's opportunities to help a lot of kids, many times. Process expects substantive changes in performance, but that means there have to be changes in adult practices. Right? If your teachers, if you got some bad teachers and they didn't get any better, the results won't look any different. Efficient communication, making sure as you have successes, celebrate them. Talk about them, share them with your stakeholders, share them with your greater community. Make sure people in that book, they do that. They do a good job of that. So, kind of just a quick review of some of the things. So I know that was fast and furious. So again, Devander kind of gave you an intro into how to keep your information in the system. Hopefully this will help you at least drive some thought as to this process. How can you make it really meaningful and truly about school improvement? So what questions does anybody have about either part of our presentation this morning?
It's kind of like year 3
Uh-huh.
of our, and, one of the goals is what you were saying, maybe minimum. At least it's engagement goals,
You could add one. You could
add one, but.
and you could end the one. Easy example. If you go back, you realize we have a goal on survey information. It was 97% baseline because it may have well have gotten approved, or 92 or whatever, and it's not strategic. End it. So you know what? We're good. And rewrite a new goal. Absolutely. And get with a group of stakeholders. Doesn't have to be like your initial group, but get enough voices at the table to say, okay, guys, this, our teacher admin quality goal to say that we want 98% of our parents to like our school or whatever. Yeah, just change it. Absolutely. Thank you all for your time and attention.
So we gave you some resources that link, which is the DSSR page that we created. This is another website that our team has created called the South Carolina Innovation Station that has a plethora of resources and information that you can use. We have 4 components: comprehensive improvement planning. That's the portion we just got through talking about. There are resources in there to help you and guide you through that process, as well as evidence-based interventions. So what type of interventions can we put in? Where do I get them from? I have no idea what to do. You can use, we have, as Pat mentioned earlier, What Works Clearinghouse is in there, Evidence for ESSA is in there, and it can help you find those interventions that are good for your particular site and for your particular school. Selecting.
Yeah, the other one, the second one. Yeah.
Is the PowerPoint that y'all went over somewhere where we can have access to?
Yes, you all will have access to that later.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So as I said, we have What Works Clearinghouse, and then we have Evidence for ESSA that's in there. Ideas that Work is also in there. So it can help you find some interventions that will actually apply to your particular population that you have at your school or district. And then the next one is teaching students in poverty. We all know South Carolina is at a 60% plus poverty rate. So all of us are pretty much in that boat together. Those are resources to help you with that as well, including best practices that you can use for teaching students in poverty. And then the last portion that we have is called the resource portal. Anything that's everything. We try to put it in one particular location to provide as a resource for you. Again, this is called the South Carolina Innovation Station, and you can just Google it and it'll come up. But we want you to go in there and look around and see what's there and use those resources. Not just you use them specifically, but make sure you go back and share them with your district, share them with your teachers, because there is a lot of information in there. Click on virtual instruction. So these are all, we all know we're in that virtual stage now. 10 years ago, that wasn't the case, but now that's where we are. These are several different websites that they can go to and different resources that they can use to make their experience in the classroom a little bit better, especially with our current situation. Stop at interactive applications and websites. These are just a list of just some of the websites that they can use. And then there are some that's geared towards math and some that's geared towards e-learning. As a former classroom teacher, I taught math and I loved it because I'm a geek when it comes to technology. So anything that I could find that was technical, I applied it and I used it. And the kids love it too. They have a greater sense of, they take on it differently. Because everything they do from Call of Duty to, what's the new? Fortnite.
That's not right.
So, and what I try to do is actually mimic that particular situation in the classroom and giving them that technical experience. And some of my students, it was like a light bulb came on, they were actually willing to work and to do it that way. So these resources are here for you. Again, look through it, see what's there, go back and share it with your school, your district, your teachers, your everybody. We need these algorithms to go up. If you need assistance of anything with the website, put your information in, and it's gonna go to our IT whiz here, which is Mr. Brunson, and then he'll forward it to whoever it needs to go to. If it's something that you don't see here that you would like more information about, by all means, put that in as well, and we'll read it to you. Any questions? Again, it's called the South Carolina Innovation Station.
All right, thank you.